guys, welcome back to another video. Today's video is going to be another book versus movie, and today I am focusing on Queen of the Damned. Queen of the Damned is a sequel to Interview with a Vampire, which came out in 1994. Queen of the Damned came out in 2002, so there's an issue already with the, 8-year difference. But I'm talking about Queen of the Damned because it is an adaptation of actually 2 books. So the company that owned the rights to basically Anne Rice's series, like being able to turn it into something, had rights to turn the first 3 books into movies, and it was expiring soon. So they decided to take their sweet ass time, and they still had 2 books to go through, so they decided to mash them into 1 movie. Which was a terrible idea. Now the first 3 books are called Interview with a Vampire, The Vampire Lestat, and Queen of the Damned. So the movie is named after the 3rd book because it takes a lot of the stuff that happens in it from book 3 and kind of skips over book 2. There's some stuff in there, but not a lot. So they might have tried to mix 2 books together. They didn't succeed in mixing 2 books together, so there's that. So today I'm going to be talking about the differences between the book and the movie. First off, characters. When it comes to characters, of course we have to start with Lestat, the icon himself. Lestat is 6 feet tall with thick curly blonde hair. He has gray eyes, but in certain lighting it can look blue or violet, or it changes shades. He is very white, pale as the moon, and he has very sharp nails. In the movie, he is played by Stuart Townsend, and he does not really fit this description at all. He has brown curly hair, so it is curly. His eyes are a shade of brown. I don't know how tall Stuart is. Height doesn't really matter, and he is pale. So the only thing they really got right with this depiction of Lestat is that he's pale. I believe, yes, they do show off his sharp weapon-like nails. And he's got curly hair. Next up is Marius. In the books, Marius is quite tall. He has white blonde hair that comes down to his shoulders with small curls. So, a little wavy. His eyes are iridescent blue with specks of gold, and most of the time he's wearing a red velvet jacket. Marius doesn't look at all like his book counterpart in this movie. I wouldn't say super tall, but he ain't real short, but he does have very short brown hair that is straight. So his hair looks nothing like his book counterpart. He does have blue eyes and wears a lot of red. That's kind of all they got right. Blue eyes and a red coat. Jessie is kind of like Victoria in Twilight. She has red hair, green eyes, pale skin. She is a psychic and can see ghosts, which is awesome. She works for the Talamasca and is turned into a vampire, eventually, when she's 35 years old. For the movie, they aged her down to her 20s. And she has red-ish hair. I'd say it's more like a reddish-brown. In the book, it's kind of described like a fiery red Victoria from Eclipse red. And it's straight rather than, there's no curl to it. It's just kind of flat. And she has brown eyes rather than green eyes. She's not a psychic, as far as I am aware. I haven't seen this movie in quite a while, but I don't believe she's a psychic at all. And they don't even touch on the fact she can see ghosts. I'm pretty sure that's just... woo! So, they share a name. And that's kind of about it. David Talbot, in the books, is a 70-year-old man. There is a body swapping thing that happens in later books. But when he's first introduced, he is an old man. He works for the Talamasca, he's like the head honcho man. But he's an old man. In the movie, he is aged down. He's middle-aged, I think 30s or something like that. Very short brown hair, glasses, wears, nerd clothes. He does work for the Talamasca with Jesse, and I think they aged him down, maybe so there could be like a slight connection between them. But obviously they kind of focus on Jesse and Lestat in this movie and don't even... David's barely there at all. Armand is one of the most tragic changes. In every rendition that they have done of these books, with the 1994 movie, this movie, and the show that's, that came out, Season 2 is coming out in May. Very excited. They have not once gotten Armand correct. Not one time. They have not gotten him right. Any time. His description never matches the person who plays him. Because he is described as having a long head of curly red hair. Like Victoria from Twilight. His face is shining white. And he was turned at 17. So he looks like a curly, red-haired, 17-year-old ginger man. You know what I mean? He is known to be angelic and having the face of a cherub. So cute. The Armand in this movie has a very tiny role. I don't even know why they put him in there. But he has a head of long, curly, blonde hair. He's quite pale. Okay. Blue eyes. And the actor who played Armand was 24 at the time when he played him. So he did play a younger version of Armand. Not 17. But his hair is blonde, not ginger. His eyes aren't brown. They're blue. He's pale. Just like, guys, can we get him to be at least ginger or something? Pandora is also a character that is in this movie, but her role is like this. I don't even know why they put her in here. In the books, Pandora is tall with rippling brown hair and golden brown eyes. She's flawless. She's beauty. She is too ravishing for mortal males and makes mortal females jealous, envious of her. She's beautiful. In the movie, she's there. She looks tall. She's got like long, I believe it's black, or it's a dark brown hair, and she has blue eyes. But she doesn't get a big enough part to really understand her. Mael is also a character, or Mael. I don't know how you say it. Mael, whatever. He also has a small part in this movie. In the books, he's tall and gaunt. He has wavy, straw-colored hair. Eyes are deep set and blue. He has a hawk nose. So he has, like, little features that are not, like, standardly beautiful, but they, like, combine. His faults combine to make him somewhat beautiful. In the movie, he has gray hair with, like, white around the roots. His eyes are brown, and he looks raggedy, like a raggedy old man. Maharet has curly red hair, as they are, she is an ancestor of Jesse, so she has red curly hair, green eyes, pale skin. She is a witch who could talk to spirits. She was born a witch, and her eyes were cut out because of Queen Akasha. Not cool. In the movie, they kind of matched her hair to Jesse's. Her hair is a brown. Might be a reddish brown. It's got some wave to it. She has dark eyes. I mean, there's not a lot. She doesn't really match the description at all. I don't even know if they talk about her witch backstory at all in this movie. So... Queen Akasha. An icon. She has black hair that is often braided in an Egyptian style, but when it's unbraided, it's long and loose and curly. She has very dark, nearly black eyes, and not a blemish on her skin. Even when she was turned to stone, the moonlight glowed off of her. Queen Akasha has very straight, long, black hair, dark eyes. She has a darker complexion, and she moves like she's floating. I don't know how she moves in the books, but woo, in the movie she does a lot of, you know? And a side note, there are characters that were just completely erased. They just decided not to bring them up, like at all, that are involved in these two books, and they just kind of... First off, Louis isn't in this movie, which... Ha! Nicholas isn't in this movie. Ha! Gabrielle, Lestad's mom, isn't in this movie. Baby Jinx and the Fang Gang, which are in the book, don't show up. And Mikari, I believe it's pronounced Mikari, Maharet's twin sister, isn't even in the movie. Like, what? Now to the events. The main story plots between these books that the movie either touched on or didn't touch on. The movie mainly focuses on Lestad's point of view, you know, his experience waking up to find a band, going, hey, I'm gonna be your lead singer now, bitch. His journey to performing, the vampires attacking him eventually meeting Akasha, him and her, you know. And so on and so forth. In the book, it switches point of views every so often just to be like, so Lestad's over here, and these are what these people are doing. And the movie kind of did that, but not much of it. It's mostly like, what's Lestat doing? Where is he? What is he doing? Blah, you know. So, less points of view. This movie combined two books, The Vampire Lestat and Queen of the Damned, but they kind of just skipped over the Vampire Lestat, and then the stuff that they did use was wrong. Like, the way they show Lestat becoming a vampire is completely false, and the person who turns him isn't even the person who turns him. In the movie, he is turned by Marius. Marius is actually Armand's maker. He does not make Lestat. Lestat is turned by a vampire named Magnus. Lestat is a performer and is basically stalked by Magnus. Eventually, Magnus kidnaps him. Magnus turns him into a vampire, you know, and kills himself by lighting himself on fire, which is just cruel. Dude, like, seriously? Like, instead of, you know, helping Lestat through this new life, explaining all the ins and outs of what's about to happen, he's like, you're a vampire now. Peace. In the movie, he was kidnapped, and turned. But it seems like, from watching the scene where he's turned, Marius turns him to be like, now you can help me explore these times, understand these times, basically help him through the new age. It's just fine, I guess, but it's also like, it's not what happened. They also mention nothing of Lestat's mother or his best friend, Nicholas. His mother is a big part of the Vampire Lestat. She's growing ill, and Lestat eventually, you know, he turns her into a vampire. And they travel together for a while, and she eventually goes on her own way, but he turns his mother into a vampire, and they kind of just did this. They just kind of didn't even talk about it, and they don't even talk about Nicholas either. Which, Nicholas is, like, a big part of that book as well, you know, before he became a vampire, and just after, and he's involved in the story, as Gabrielle is, and they just kind of decided those two weren't cool enough to be in the movie, so... Great, thanks guys. A smaller detail that isn't really that important, but it is something that is different, is in the film, he just walks out in the sun without burning. I believe he has... he's with Akasha when this happens, I believe, but there's a moment where he's out in the sun. Even in the books, he still, like, gets burned by the sun. That's not suddenly a thing where he's like, okay. At his strongest, you know, after being with Akasha and, you know, all the power she gives, he flies real close to the sun, kind of like Icarus, and still, you know, he survives. A normal vampire would have died, but he has serious burns afterward. It's not like he's unscathed, like suddenly the sun can't hurt him. So, I mean, it's a minute detail, and it doesn't really matter, but it's also like, dude. The only thing that they introduced that I actually like is they introduced that Anne Rice's vampires cry blood. In the 1994 movie, they kind of just skip over that and don't really include it. In this movie, they did. And in the TV series, they do as well. They do include the vampires crying blood. So, you know, there's something. One of my biggest pet peeves with this movie is that they cut out Armand and Daniel's relationship entirely because, well, Daniel's not even in this movie, and Armand is barely in this movie. Daniel, after being attacked by Louis in the first book, goes out looking for Lestat and runs into Armand instead. They kind of start a relationship or a friendship per se. Basically, you know, Daniel's helping him through these times, and, you know, Daniel's like, turn me into a vampire, and he's like, just wait, please turn me into a vampire. Huh? Daniel started to become impatient with Armand, because Armand wasn't turning him into a vampire. By the time that Lestat has, like, his first concert, or big concert, around 1985, around that range, his health has declined so rapidly that he's gonna die. And so Armand finally turns him. Armand held out so long because he knew that this would ruin their relationship. You know, it was kind of like Daniel was helping Armand understand these times, you know, come into these times, and he was going to turn Daniel, you know. And so once he turned Daniel, Daniel kind of left, and Armand knew that most vampires, you know, go to hate their makers. You know, even if it was consensual, a lot of them grow to hate them, and he knew this. And so once he turned him, he knew that their relationship kind of was going to end, which is sad. They should have lasted forever. But you know, they cut out their relationship entirely. You know, Daniel being turned, them even meeting, like, it doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. In the movie, Lestat is playing his violin, which is Nicholas's thing, but whatever. Playing his violin, and suddenly his bow just flies out of his hand and hits a wall where he finds a secret door. Ooh. He goes down, because obviously who doesn't go into the secret door, finds Akasha and her consort, their statues of course, and he starts to play for them. Akasha actually wakes up, just a little, and offers her wrist to him, which I don't know if I would bite a statue, regardless if I hear a heartbeat or not. Bites said statue. Marius finds him down there and goes, oh shit, brings him back up, chains him to a bed. And he's like, what the fuck, bro? I haven't gotten them to move in like thousands of years. What the hell? What the hell? In the book, Marius shows Lestat this sanctuary where Akasha and her consort are, rather than him stumbling upon it. And he does wake up Akasha, but Akasha actually, like, moves around. She doesn't just, like, here you go. She actually, like, gets up. She awakens and offers her blood to Lestat, and then she drinks Lestat's blood. Her consort did not appreciate that one. He wakes up and tries to kill him. He is only saved when Marius comes down and threatens her consort, saying that he will take Akasha away if he doesn't stop trying to kill Lestat. And Lestat, you know, he escapes. And later on in the books, it is said that Lestat says the only reason he survived Claudia trying to kill him was because of Akasha's blood, since he had taken blood from the first vampire, basically. So it gave him more strength than the normal vampire would, and that's why he didn't just die. In the movie, they try to force a relationship between Jesse and Lestat. It's the main romance of the entire movie. They meet each other in a desolate alley. It's a very sensual moment where Lestat pushes Jesse up against a wall and pricks her finger. You wouldn't think that would be sensual, but it is. And they have moments throughout the movie, and it even ends with Lestat turning Jesse into a vampire so they can live out their days together. But honestly, it just felt very forced and didn't feel natural. Maybe because that doesn't even happen in the books, like, at all. There is not a relationship between Jesse and Lestat. The only real romance that happens in these two books is Louis does come back. Obviously, they had split up in the first book, and in the second, or third, Louis comes back, and they basically have a conversation where they apologize to one another. They mend things. He doesn't want Lestat to do the concert. Lestat wants to do it anyway, because his ego's up here. And so Louis goes to the concert with him as I'll be there for you. And he does have moments with Akasha later on where they're together, and I would consider that maybe sensual in some ways, but it's a lot of power-hungry moments rather than love. The only, real, genuine feeling I believe Lestat has for anyone would be Louis. But, of course, Louis isn't in this movie, so that doesn't happen. Speaking of turning Jesse, in the movie, Lestat turns Jesse. Akasha forces Lestat to bite Jesse in front of all the vampires in this room. He drains her to near death, and, after Akasha is dead, feeds Jesse his blood and turns her into a vampire. In the books, she does become a vampire, but not, that. Jessie attends Lestad's concert and throws herself on stage before being dragged off. Later on, she's, I wouldn't say behind or the scenes, or she's basically sitting and a vampire finds her, smells the Talamasca on her, which is not good, and throws her, and she, I believe, breaks her neck or her back, or basically he brings her to the point of death. And she's brought back to Maharet's home, and she asks Mael to turn her into a vampire, but Maharet walks into the room and decides that she's going to turn Jessie. So in both, she is turned into a vampire, however, it's in a completely different way. The movie completely ignores the tale of the two twins. The biggest factor in this is because one of the twins doesn't even exist. Maharet isn't a twin. They cut out Maharet completely, but the books had the tale of the two twins. Maharet and Maharet were ginger, red-haired twins. You know, in Egypt, they're rare. You know, they stand out. And they were natural-born witches who could talk to spirits. And they had a run-in with Akasha and her consort before the vampire thing happened. And they didn't, like, not on good terms. I believe, you know, I don't know the exact timeline of events, but at one point they piss off the queen and they are forced to be raped in front of an entire room of people. And then one of them gets pregnant, which is how Jessie comes to be. She is a descendant of Maharet. Maharet has a daughter, and then obviously the line continues. When they're in the midst of trying to eat their mother's heart and brain for a funeral rite, which in their, you know, culture, that's normal, that's the thing to do, the queen's like, can't be doing that, kidnaps them, you know, does terrible things to them. And at one point, Maharet's eyes are cut out, and I believe Makari's tongue is cut out. And Makari, I believe, summons this, like, demonic spirit to basically hurt the kingdom and the king and queen. Actually brings them to the brink of death. However, this spirit wants blood and possesses Akasha, making her the first vampire, who eventually turns the guy who raped them in front of everyone, who then, I believe he turns Makari, and then Makari turns Maharet, or one way or the other. And they become vampires. They get separated, and eventually Makari shows back up. But Maharet doesn't know where she is for like 6,000 years. But the first vampire is because of a demonic spirit of sorts that possesses Akasha and makes her the first vampire. And then everything goes from there. And they kind of just cut that out entirely. They did say that Akasha was the first vampire and that they're all connected. But they didn't talk about, like, the spirit that is technically possessing her. Or anything involving twins, which you can't really talk about the twins since there aren't twins. In the movie, Akasha's goal is to make Lestat her king and rule humans. You know, humans are below her, vampires shouldn't hide, they're livestock, you know, rule them with an iron fist, you know, the usual. In the book, it's a similar aspect. She does want to rule humanity, but she has a more planned out plan of attack. Her end goal. She shows up at Maharet's house where all the vampires are and basically like, join me or I'm gonna murder you. She wants to kill 90% of the men in the world and then create a new Eden, new society where she is worshipped mostly by women, and men are, from what it sounds like, just used for repopulating. So they're just there because they have to be there. And the vampires could join her. But they don't want to because Akasha's only doing this to basically be worshipped. Her ego is to the sky and she wants people to worship her and make her feel like a god. You know, and they're like, nah, bro. So in both, you know, she does think humans are below her, that she deserves to be worshipped, that, you know, she wants to rule humanity. But in the books, it's more like she's got a plan set out. She's gonna kill 90% of the men. Like, alright. And in the book, she kills vampires, like a lot of vampires, like they're just dead. And they don't really talk about that in the movie, and they don't really show a lot of that, but like she just kills vampires, like she doesn't even have to be there. It's kind of scary. And lastly, in the movie, Akasha is killed by the vampires, which include Lestat, Maharet, Pandora, I believe Armand, Marius, a group of vampires. They attack Akasha, and each of them takes sips of her blood. Maharet takes the last sip and becomes a statue. Akasha turns to dust, and Maharet becomes the new Queen of the Damned. Why is she turned into a statue? I know that Akasha was a statue, but I feel like that wouldn't instantly turn you into a statue. She was just sleeping. Okay, bud. But now Maharet is the new Queen of the Damned, because obviously if you kill the Queen of the Damned, you kill all the other vampires. They are all connected to her. She dies, they all die. So you can't kill the Queen, but they just swapped her, basically. And now Maharet is Queen. In the book is a lot more gruesome than that. Akasha shows up at Maharet's home and is threatening them like, hey, join me or I'm going to kill you. And the vampires are like, nah, we're good. Then Maharet shows up, who hasn't been seen for 6,000 years, and attacks Akasha by throwing her into a glass wall or a window. One thing leads to another, and she gets decapitated by glass. And because the vampires are freaking out now, because they're like, holy shit, we're all gonna die, Maharet then eats the brain and the heart of Akasha to become the new Queen of the Damned. By bringing this into herself, the spirit that is possessing Akasha connects to her, and she becomes the Queen of the Damned. Maharet becomes like her second in command. And Akasha is defeated. So all the vampires get to live happy lives, and there's a new Queen of the Damned. Was this movie perfect? No. Not even close. They messed up so much shit. They decided to combine 2 books into one movie, which was not a smart thing to do, because both books deserve their own movie. There's a lot in them. So they tried to combine 2 books into one movie. They basically skipped over the second book, and the bits and pieces they did use were wrong. They cut out Gabrielle, they cut out Nicholas. The way that Lestat was turned was completely different than how he was in the books. Louis isn't even there. What? We have no relationship with Armand and Daniel. We don't get to have any of that. Armand and Pandora and Mael and all of them are there, but they don't have like a big part to play. They're just there. What was the point of putting them in there if they weren't going to do anything? You know what I mean? Like, just to have name drops? This movie tried and failed miserably. Does it have moments? Yeah. Stuart is not my Lestat. He's not. He didn't do a terrible job, but I wouldn't say he did an amazing job where I was like, oh my god. And it has moments that I liked, but if you love Anne Rice, this ain't it, Chief. This ain't it. I mean, it's not a terrible vampire movie. It's a terrible Anne Rice movie. And, it's a travesty. That might be a little harsh. It's an enjoyable watch. It's just, if you're an avid book reader and you love the books, you're gonna hate this movie. Because you're gonna see all the inconsistencies and everything they fucked up. And Armand. Oh, one day I'll get a ginger Armand. One day. Not to say that the people who have played Armand have done bad jobs. They haven't. It's just, I would like a ginger Armand. Someone. Ginger. That would be cool. Alright guys, I really hope you enjoyed this video. I'll be back again next week with another one. Alright guys, I'll see you later. Whoosh.